If you're over 70, there are habits you might have that doctors notice, not because they're judging you, but because they've seen how these small patterns can change everything about your independence later on. Most people don't realize what these habits mean. They seem harmless enough. You've been doing them for years, maybe decades. But doctors see something different when they notice these patterns. They see the difference between someone who stays independent at 85 and someone who doesn't. I'm Harold Bennett, and I've spent a lot of years watching people age. I'm not a doctor myself, but I've noticed the same patterns they talk about. Today, I want to share what I've learned, because I believe you deserve to understand what these habits really mean for your future. Good to be with you today. I want to talk about something that matters more than most people realize. These aren't dramatic changes. They're quiet habits, the kind of thing you might not even think about anymore. But they add up in ways that can surprise you. What I've learned is that the difference between staying independent and losing that independence often comes down to a handful of daily choices. Small things you can change if you understand why they matter. I'm going to walk through several habits that doctors have told me they worry about when they see them in older adults. I'll explain why each one matters, what it does to your body over time, and what you can do about it. If you find this helpful, I'd appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing to this channel. I try to have these conversations regularly, and I'd like to have you here for them. Let me start with something I see all the time. It's one of the most common habits, and it's one doctors mention first when they talk about what concerns them. The first thing I want to talk about is sitting for most of the day without getting up. Now, I know that sounds simple. You might be thinking, well, I'm retired, I've earned the right to rest. And you have. But here's what happens when you sit for hours at a time without standing up and moving around. Your muscles start to weaken faster than you'd expect. Not over years, over weeks. There's something called muscle protein synthesis, which is just a fancy way of saying your body builds and maintains muscle. When you sit for long periods, that process slows down significantly. Your legs, especially, lose strength quickly. Why does this matter? Because those leg muscles are what keep you steady. They're what let you catch yourself if you stumble. They're what get you up from a chair without needing to push off with your hands. I've watched this happen to people I know. Let me tell you about two men I knew, both 73 at the time. We'll call them Robert and Walter. Robert spent most of his day in his recliner, getting up mainly for meals and the bathroom. Walter made a point of standing up every hour or so, walking to the kitchen, maybe checking the mail, just moving around his house. After about a year, the difference was striking. Robert started needing his hands to push himself up from chairs. He moved more slowly, more carefully. Walter was still getting up easily, still moving with confidence. Same age, different habits, different outcomes. What happens in your body when you sit too long goes beyond just muscle. Your circulation slows down, blood pools in your legs. Your metabolism changes. Studies have shown that sitting for extended periods affects your blood sugar levels, your blood pressure, your heart health. But I don't need to cite studies to tell you what's obvious once you understand it. Your body was made to move. When it doesn't move, it starts to decline. That's just how it works. If you've been sitting most of the day, here's what I'd suggest. You don't need to start exercising hard. You don't need a gym. Just stand up every hour. Walk to another room. Stand while you're on the phone. Walk around your house or apartment. These small moments of movement matter more than you might think. Your body responds to them. It maintains strength better. It keeps your balance systems working. This isn't about athletic performance. It's about keeping the physical capability that lets you live independently. The next thing doctors worry about is not drinking enough water throughout the day. I know you've heard this before. Everyone talks about hydration, but let me explain why it matters differently when you're over 70. Your body's sense of thirst gets weaker as you age. You might not feel thirsty even when your body actually needs water. At the same time, your kidneys don't work quite as efficiently as they used to. This combination means dehydration can sneak up on you without you realizing it. Here's what dehydration does. It affects your thinking first. Your concentration gets fuzzy. Your memory doesn't work as well. You might feel tired or dizzy. Doctors see this all the time, older adults coming in confused or disoriented, and the problem turns out to be dehydration. It also affects your blood pressure, your digestion, your body's ability to regulate temperature. In summer, this becomes especially important. I knew two women, both around 75. Let's call them Eleanor and Barbara. Eleanor drank maybe 1 glass of water a day, plus her morning coffee. She figured she wasn't thirsty, so she didn't need it. Barbara kept a water bottle with her and made sure to drink from it throughout the day, not because she felt thirsty, but because she knew she needed to. Over time, Eleanor started having more problems with lightheadedness. She'd stand up and feel dizzy. Her thinking seemed slower. Her doctor ran tests, couldn't find anything seriously wrong, and finally realized she was chronically dehydrated. Barbara, meanwhile, stayed sharp and steady. The difference wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and gradual, but it was real. Your body at 70 or 75 or 80 needs water just as much as it did when you were younger. Maybe more, because medications can dehydrate you, and because your body doesn't signal its needs as clearly anymore. What I'd suggest is this. Don't wait until you feel thirsty. Keep water nearby. Drink a glass when you wake up. Drink one with each meal. Drink one in the afternoon. Make it a habit based on the clock, not on thirst. Your body will thank you for it in ways you'll notice. Clearer thinking, more energy, better balance. These aren't small things. I hope this is making sense so far. These habits seem minor when you look at them one at a time, but they build on each other. Stay with me here, because this next one is important. The third habit doctors worry about is skipping meals or eating the same small amount of food every day without enough protein. I hear people say they're just not as hungry anymore, and I understand that. Your appetite does decrease as you age. But here's what's happening when you don't eat enough, particularly when you don't get enough protein. Your body starts breaking down your own muscle tissue to get the amino acids it needs. This is called muscle wasting, and it happens faster in older adults than in younger people. Why does this matter? Because muscle is what protects you. It's not just about being strong. Muscle is what keeps your bones safe when you fall. It's what maintains your metabolism. It's what keeps your immune system working well. Research tells us that older adults need more protein than younger adults, not less, because their bodies don't use protein as efficiently anymore. Yet most older people eat less protein as they age, thinking they don't need as much food. Let me tell you about two people I observed, both 76. We'll call them Margaret and Susan. Margaret ate lightly, toast for breakfast, maybe some soup for lunch, a small dinner. She thought she was eating healthy by not overeating. Susan made sure every meal had some protein, eggs or chicken or fish or beans. She ate regular meals even when she wasn't particularly hungry. After about a year, Margaret started looking frail. She'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way. She looked thinner, weaker. Susan maintained her weight and her strength. When Margaret fell one day, she broke her hip. Susan had a fall around the same time, didn't break anything. Same age, similar circumstances, different outcomes. The doctors told Margaret's family that her bones and muscles were too weak, likely from inadequate nutrition over time. Your body needs fuel to maintain itself. When you don't give it enough, especially enough protein, it starts consuming itself. That's not an exaggeration. That's what actually happens. If eating regular meals is difficult, talk to your doctor about why. Sometimes medications affect appetite. Sometimes it's dental problems making it hard to chew. Sometimes it's just habit. But whatever the reason, it's worth addressing because this habit affects everything else about your health. What I'd suggest is making protein a priority at each meal. It doesn't have to be a lot. An egg, some cheese, a piece of chicken, Greek yogurt, peanut butter, just something. Your body needs it to maintain muscle, to keep your immune system working, to heal when you get injured. This isn't about dieting or losing weight. It's about giving your body what it needs to stay functional. The fourth thing that concerns doctors is staying indoors most of the time without getting any sunlight. Now, I know there are good reasons people do this. It might be hot outside or cold, or you might not feel like dealing with it. But here's what happens when you don't get regular exposure to sunlight. Your body stops making enough vitamin D. Vitamin D is crucial for bone strength, immune function, and even mood. Your body makes it naturally when sunlight touches your skin, but only when you're actually outside. Sunlight through a window doesn't do it. Low vitamin D is incredibly common in older adults, and doctors see the effects all the time. Weaker bones that fracture more easily, more frequent infections, depression that seems to come from nowhere. The thing is, you can't feel vitamin D deficiency. You don't know it's happening until you notice the effects, and by then, you might have been deficient for months or years. I knew two men, both around 71. We'll call them Joe and Frank. Joe went outside every morning, just for 15 or 20 minutes. He'd walk to the end of his street, sit on his porch, check his mailbox. Frank stayed inside almost all the time. He had everything he needed delivered, watched TV, talked to family on the phone. When they both had routine blood work done, Joe's vitamin D levels were fine. Frank's were very low. His doctor put him on supplements, but explained that his bones had already weakened. His immune system was compromised. Frank started getting sick more often, colds that lasted longer than they should. Joe stayed healthier, steadier. The difference was those 15 minutes outside each day. Sunlight does something else too. It helps regulate your sleep cycle. It affects your mood through mechanisms we don't completely understand. Doctors have noticed that patients who get outside regularly report better sleep, better mood, more energy. It's not magic. It's just how your body works. It needs natural light. If you've been staying inside most of the time, here's what I'd suggest. Just step outside for 10 or 15 minutes a day. You don't need to do anything. Sit on your porch or patio. Stand in your yard. Walk to your mailbox. Early morning or late afternoon is good when the sun isn't too intense. Let the sunlight touch your skin, your face and arms. Your body will start making vitamin D again. You'll probably notice you feel a bit better, though the change is subtle. This is one of those habits that seems almost too simple to matter, but it matters more than you think. If you're finding this helpful, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. The fifth habit doctors worry about is taking multiple medications without understanding what each one does or why you're taking it. I'm not suggesting you stop taking prescribed medications. That's not what this is about. But here's what happens. Over the years, you collect medications. One doctor prescribes something for blood pressure. Another prescribes something for cholesterol. Another adds something for sleep or pain or digestion. Pretty soon, you're taking 6 or 8 or 10 different medications, and you might not remember why you started each one or whether you still need it. Here's why this concerns doctors. Medications interact with each other in ways that can be harmful, especially as you age. Your liver and kidneys don't process medications as efficiently when you're 75 as they did when you were 50. This means medications can build up in your system. It also means side effects become more likely and more severe. Dizziness, confusion, falls, digestive problems. These can all be caused or worsened by medication interactions. Doctors see patients all the time who are having serious problems, and when they review the medication list, they find that some of the problems are actually caused by the medications themselves. Let me tell you about 2 women I knew, both 78. We'll call them Carol and Nancy. Carol took all her medications exactly as prescribed, but she had no idea what most of them were for. She'd been taking some of them for years. Nancy kept a list of her medications with notes about why she was taking each one, and she brought that list to every doctor appointment to review it. She asked questions. Is this still necessary? Are there interactions I should know about? Could this be causing this other symptom? When Carol started having severe dizziness and confusion, her doctor discovered she was on 3 medications that shouldn't have been taken together, and 2 of them she probably didn't need anymore. Nancy's proactive approach meant her doctors caught potential problems before they became serious. Your body changes as you age, and medications that were right for you 10 years ago might not be right for you now. Doses might need adjusting. Some medications might not be necessary anymore. But unless you understand what you're taking and why, and unless you regularly review this with your doctor, problems can develop without anyone noticing until they're serious. What I'd suggest is this. Make a list of every medication you take, including over-the-counter ones and supplements. Write down what each one is for. Bring this list to your next doctor appointment and ask to review it. Are all of these still necessary? Are the doses still appropriate? Are there interactions you should know about? Could any of these be causing symptoms you're experiencing? This isn't about second-guessing your doctor. It's about being an active participant in your own care. Doctors appreciate patients who ask these questions because it makes their job easier and makes your care safer. The 6th thing doctors notice and worry about is isolating yourself socially, not talking to people regularly, or leaving your home to be around others. I know there are many reasons this happens. Friends pass away or move away. Family gets busy. It becomes harder to get around. You might not feel like dealing with social situations anymore. But here's what research has shown and what doctors see in practice. Social isolation affects your health in measurable ways. It increases your risk of cognitive decline. It affects your immune system. It's linked to higher rates of depression, higher blood pressure, even higher mortality rates. Why does this happen? Your brain needs stimulation to stay sharp. Conversations, even simple ones, require your brain to work in ways that watching television doesn't. Processing what someone says, formulating responses, reading facial expressions, and tone, these all keep your cognitive functions active. When you don't interact with people regularly, those neural pathways weaken. It's similar to how muscles weaken when you don't use them. Beyond the cognitive effects, social connection affects your sense of purpose, your mood, your motivation to take care of yourself. I watched this happen with two people I knew, both around 74. We'll call them Thomas and William. Thomas lived alone and rarely left his apartment after he retired. He'd talk to his daughter on the phone once a week, but that was about it. William made a point of going to the senior center twice a week, just to play cards and chat with people. He'd call friends regularly, invite them over for coffee. After a couple of years, the difference was striking. Thomas seemed to have aged faster. His thinking was slower. He seemed confused more easily. He lost interest in things he used to enjoy. William stayed sharp, engaged, interested in life. When Thomas finally saw a doctor about his memory problems, the doctor asked about his social life first, before ordering any tests. The isolation itself was likely contributing to his cognitive decline. Being around people, even in small ways, keeps you connected to the world. It gives you reasons to get dressed, to leave the house, to think about something other than your own concerns. It reminds you that you're part of something larger than yourself. Doctors know this affects health outcomes. Patients who maintain social connections recover better from illness, manage chronic conditions more successfully, live longer, and live better. If you've been isolating yourself, I understand it might feel difficult to change that. But here's what I'd suggest. Start small. Call one person this week. Accept one invitation you'd normally decline. Go to one place where other people are, even if you don't talk to anyone. The library, a coffee shop, a community center. Just being around people helps. If you can manage it, find one activity you can do regularly with others. A card game, a book club, a volunteer opportunity. Anything that gets you interacting with people on a regular schedule. Your brain will respond. Your mood will improve. This is one of those changes that affects everything else about your health and your quality of life. The last thing I want to talk about is ignoring small health changes, waiting until problems become serious before you do anything about them. This is something I've seen again and again. A little pain in your knee that gradually gets worse. Balance that seems slightly off. Memory that isn't quite as sharp. Hearing that's declined. You notice these things, but you think, well, that's just aging. Maybe it is. But maybe it's something that could be helped if you addressed it early. Here's what doctors wish their older patients understood. Many health problems are much easier to manage when they're caught early. That knee pain might be arthritis that could be treated before it destroys the joint. That balance problem might be an inner ear issue that can be fixed. That memory change might be a medication side effect or a vitamin deficiency, not dementia. But if you wait until you fall and break something, or until you can't remember your grandchildren's names, or until you can't walk without severe pain, the options for treatment are more limited and the outcomes are worse. I knew two men, both 77. Let's call them Richard and Edward. Richard noticed his hearing was getting worse, but he didn't want to deal with hearing aids. He figured he'd manage. Edward noticed the same thing and made an appointment to get his hearing checked. He got hearing aids and wore them consistently. Over the next few years, Richard became more isolated because conversations were too difficult. He'd smile and nod, not really understanding what was being said. His family stopped including him as much because it was too frustrating for everyone. Edward stayed connected, engaged in conversations, remained part of family gatherings. The hearing loss was the same. The response to it made all the difference. Your body gives you signals when something's wrong. Pain is a signal. Changes in balance, in vision, in hearing, in memory, these are all signals. When you ignore them, you're ignoring your body's way of telling you that something needs attention. Sometimes it's nothing serious. Sometimes it's part of normal aging. But sometimes it's something that can be helped, and the only way to know is to have it checked. Doctors see patients all the time who've lived with problems for years that could have been managed if they'd been addressed sooner. What I'd suggest is this. Pay attention to changes in your body and your functioning. Don't dismiss them as just getting old. If something's different from how it was 6 months ago or a year ago, mention it to your doctor. Let them decide if it's concerning or not. That's their job. Your job is to notice and report. Small problems are almost always easier to fix than big problems. This isn't about being anxious or hypervigilant. It's about being observant and proactive with your own health. Let me bring this together for you. The habits I've talked about today, sitting too much, not drinking enough water, not eating enough protein, staying indoors, not understanding your medications, isolating yourself socially, ignoring health changes, these might seem like separate issues, but they're connected. They all affect your independence, your quality of life, your ability to live on your own terms for as long as possible. That's what this is really about. Not living longer necessarily, though these habits affect that too. It's about living better, staying capable, maintaining your dignity and your autonomy. The good news is that every one of these habits can be changed. You don't need to change everything at once. Pick one thing. Maybe it's standing up more often during the day. Maybe it's drinking more water. Maybe it's calling one friend this week. Small changes compound over time. Your body responds to what you do today, tomorrow, next week. It's never too late to make changes that matter. I'm not here to alarm you or to make you feel bad about habits you've developed. I'm here because I believe you deserve to understand what these patterns mean and what you can do about them. You're capable of making changes. You're worth the effort it takes. And the changes themselves don't have to be overwhelming. Just thoughtful. Just consistent. If you found this helpful, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me know in the comments. And if you know someone who might benefit from hearing this, please share it with them. I try to have these conversations regularly here, and I'd love to have you as part of them. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more. Take care of yourself. You matter. The choices you make today shape what your next years look like. Make them count.